In this part of the course, I will introduce you to various crisis situations. You may be in some of them, or perhaps you are yet to find yourself in some time. Knowing how to respond to such crisis situations will really be very helpful, because you won't be surprised. You'll just know what to do to save face, to keep your attraction, and to make the strongest possible positive impact on your relationship. I will talk very strongly about the balance of commitment between you. What to do when it is disturbed. Is it to your advantage or disadvantage? It all depends on whether it was you who tried too hard and your partner pushed back, or maybe your partner tried too hard and you feel you no longer care. Or maybe you were trying less before and now you are trying too much and have jumped from one extreme to the other. Such situations are also common. All this will be discussed in the following parts of the course. I will also talk a lot about what to do in situations when there is a threat from a third party in your relationship and how to behave then. I will explain why you should not panic, but rather act quickly, but at the same time calmly, and above all else wisely, and on top of that in a thoughtful way. Should you watch the rest of the course together with your partner? As a precaution, it is better not to. I don't know what your situation is specifically, but it's definitely better if you watch the rest of the course alone at first, and only later, if you think it's okay, then show it to your partner. Why? Because some of the techniques I'm going to tell you about, especially about fixing the balance of feelings when you're the one who showed too much interest in your partner, will be a kind of manipulation. We never advise such things in a completely healthy and happy relationship, but in a situation where a third party has appeared there, then perhaps you will need such a very strong injection of attraction, which will act like adrenaline or an antibiotic in a crisis moment like you would do if someone dying. Normally, such things are not given to a healthy person, but if it can save a life, then clearly something like this will be worthwhile. Especially in a situation when it's really close to a breakup or when there is a strong threat from a third person. Such manipulations are indeed what I will be discussing, so it's better that you watch this video yourself first. So that is it for the beginning of this part, and I am already inviting you to concentrate on specific events. Let's start with how our feelings work. In the beginning, when we meet some new people, we always judge each other on how attractive we are to each other. Such 5 basic factors come into play at first. Namely, it is appearance, character, communication skills, your lifestyle, and in the case of men, it is also resources. This is very well scientifically proven. Men, on the other hand, completely disregard whether a woman is wealthy or not. The 6th factor is how challenging you are to this person. Do you consider yourself attractive enough to be with this person you just met? Or do you think in your mind that you are talking to someone out of your league? If that's the case, it's very likely that you'll subconsciously talk about it in different ways and let your prospective partner know about it. This can manifest itself, for example, by phrasing sentences along these lines. If I'm so lucky as to get you to ask me out, I'll be overjoyed. If you give me your phone number, I will die of joy. Sometimes this is shown in a very subtle way, but it is nevertheless palpable. Sometimes it can be sensed by the very way you talk to the person, how much interest you show, how available you are. That you answer the phone every time, that you answer messages immediately, that you are always available when someone suggests a meeting, and so on. How you show your availability, among other things, shows how much of a challenge you are to this person. If you're naturally a very attractive guy or a very attractive woman, you're single at the moment and you meet a lot of attractive people, you have a lot of choice, and suddenly you meet another attractive person, you're most likely not going to drop everything and go crazy for that person. You're just going to be a little skeptical. The most important thing for you will still be your life, what you do, your daily affairs, and this person will be such an addition. Yes, an important addition, because you may want to get to know her better. But it certainly won't be a priority. You won't throw everything aside, you won't fall in love immediately, but you will approach it a little skeptically on such a principle. Okay, it promises to be good. Let's see if this person is really suitable for a life partner. On the other hand, in the opposite situation, where nothing is happening in your life, you very rarely meet any new attractive people, and suddenly you meet someone who has finally caught your eye, who promises to be good. On top of that, you don't believe in yourself too much. You don't have too much of this kind of confidence that you might like this person, then suddenly you might act as if you might win the lottery right away. Even if you don't know this person, it shows that you want very badly to be with this person, thus subconsciously communicating that you are not a challenge for such a person. Reach back in your memory and recall such situations when someone was courting you and was not challenging you at all. You immediately saw that intention, that someone wants to be with you, that someone really wants to go out with you, that they want to get your phone number, that they text you a lot, that they clearly want something from you there. You've probably also had the opposite situation, where you were the one who tried to get someone, but that person was unavailable, was a big challenge for you, and then you suddenly started to care. You have probably encountered a situation where a man communicated with a girl he moderately liked and didn't get involved until that girl suddenly broke off contact, and the man met with a kind of rejection, and then suddenly he started to care a lot more. It is possible that you also had a similar situation in your life. This is a very universal feeling. This is the way we have of falling in love, and that's why this element of being challenged is incredibly important. Interestingly, it's also not that you have to be challenging by force, that you have to show from the very beginning that you are unavailable. You don't have to wait 3 days before you reply to a message or refuse a meeting. Of course, this is very flexible. This course is not specifically about how to behave when you meet a new person. There is one very important rule, and that is not to show interest when someone shows you no interest. This is something that immediately kills the attraction. In the beginning, this element of being challenged is very delicate. It is very easy to upset this balance of commitment. It's very easy to push away such a new person who has just entered our lives because we've just started getting to know each other. To explain it easier, let's do it this way. You as a man want to get to know a woman. When she senses that you already want her and she doesn't yet, there's something very strongly repulsive about that, which will make it so that even if you have the other attractiveness factors at a relatively high level, it can completely negate any chance you have with that person. Of course, the other attractiveness factors I've mentioned, that is, among other things, appearance, your personality, character, communication skills, lifestyle, that also matters. So if you see that the person you are getting to know is really incredibly attractive under all these attractiveness factors, and you also see that at the same time he is breaking this challenge frame, showing you right away that he is very much interested, even if you specifically did not show so much interest from the beginning, then by the fact that the other factors are at a relatively high level, this broken challenge frame will not have such a negative effect, because you consciously want to give such a person more time. Such an effect works, for example, for millionaires or other men who are highly placed, have very good positions at work, a lot of money, to put it simply. Even if they are showing too much interest, breaking this frame of challenge and getting to know a woman, showering her with compliments and showing their insecurity. But when this woman knows how important a person, for example, in the business world, the guy is, she is emotionally repelled by the fact that this someone is not a challenge for her, but logically she wants to give such a guy a little more time to check him out a little better, to just not reject him right away. So this factor is important too if we want to fully discuss what determines how we pair up. On the other hand, a very interesting thing, which is really the crux of it, is how this being a challenge turns into a balance of feelings later in the relationship. When you're just starting to get to know someone, this balance is very delicate, especially if you don't have yet such a huge attraction at other levels in your background. If you profess love to someone right away, you can immediately kill your attraction completely in the field of being a challenge and it's over. In contrast, the longer you hang out with someone new, the less new that person stops being. Later on, you start to be officially in a relationship, but even then, at the beginning of the relationship, it is still relatively easy to break this balance. But the longer you are together, this balance becomes more and more stable. Saying "I love you" after a few weeks or a few more months of being together is nothing at all like that, which will kill your attraction, especially if you see that the other person also has some affection. In fact, it can be a very big step forward. On the other hand, saying it too quickly when the other person doesn't feel it can spoil that balance. In the same way, conveying some negativity that most often breaks the balance of commitment, the type of showing excessively and negatively your jealousy or resentment, insulting each other about all sorts of things that, at the beginning of an acquaintance before you are even in a relationship, would even be a killer for your relationship. When you are already in a relationship that lasts quite a long time, there are mistakes that will be much easier to forgive and won't affect you so much that your partner starts to withhold affection. When it comes to the feelings of love that are born between you and this new person you met earlier, and with whom you are now in a relationship, then after these few years, when you are already together, When this balance of commitment between you is relatively stable, then even such a bigger mistake on your part, some outburst of jealousy or even regular resentment, of course, in a limited period of time will have a negative impact on your relationship, but will not result in an immediate breakup. Only the manifestation of such negative, repulsive behavior that breaks this balance of commitment for a longer period of time can result in your partner ceasing to care about you more and more and then moving away from you. You, sensing that this person is pulling away and feeling that you could lose him or her at any moment, will most likely feel like trying even harder for this person, courting him or her, trying to save it, coming up with all sorts of initiatives on your part that will further break this commitment balance and eventually lead to the breakup of the relationship. The balance of commitment in a relationship can also fluctuate and tilt once to one side, once to the other side. Sometimes very abruptly, sometimes a little more slowly. This is often seen when, for example, suppose a man tries to get his woman for a long time. He shows this in a negative way, sometimes in a positive way. Sometimes he shows too much jealousy, sometimes too much resentment that his woman doesn't have time for him, doesn't have as much closeness between them as he would like. At some point, when he sees that these efforts do not bring any result, her says, "Enough, I'm not trying. Now I'm living my own life, hanging out with my friends," despite the fact that he loves her all of the time. Suddenly there is such an annoyance, all the efforts stop, all the resentment stops. Perhaps there is even some offended pride. But outwardly it manifests itself in the fact that these efforts are definitely less. The woman sees that her guy stops trying, that something is wrong, that she is about to lose him. She has a lot more space suddenly, so she also naturally gets closer and closer to her partner. Then she starts trying for him and can suddenly break that balance again to her disadvantage. Often people jump from such an extreme that if someone tries before and sees that it doesn't produce any results, then they break up later. And at the time of the breakup, there is such a big emotional void in the other person, who didn't try before, that suddenly they jump from one extreme to the other extreme. It was they who didn't try before. It was their partner who broke the balance of feelings to his or her detriment. And at the moment when their said partner has had enough of it, stops trying and breaks off this relationship, that's when that person panics. This happens because the partner thought he was in some kind of stable relationship after all, and was totally sure of this person, with whom after all he had been with for so many years. And here it suddenly turns out that his relationship is ending, and suddenly his feelings dramatically skyrocket. Therefore, this effect too can sometimes be used to repair the relationship. If things are very bad in your situation, then there is already such a drastic measure that can be used as a last resort. But nevertheless, in many situations, it will be unavoidable. At this point, I would also like to point out that the impact of all measures on the balance of feelings between you and your partner is proportional to how emotionally mature your partner is. In people around the age of 20, these techniques work much faster, and they immediately enjoy and celebrate, and then they immediately make some emotional mistake again, and they can be down again, and then they can fix it again very quickly, and so on. So then such, let's call it manipulation, works brilliantly and even very quickly. The more mature someone is, the more important in the life of some person is such logical thinking, logical reasoning, hard calculations. The worse it all works. Which is not to say that it doesn't work emotionally at all. It will still work, only sometimes there may additionally be such logical blockages, which will also have to be overcome. That is, not only acting solely on emotions, but additionally on logic. In situations when your partner wants to leave you or has already left you, and he is extremely reasonable, before he does something he will think many times and has already matured strongly to the decision to part, then in addition to acting on emotions, which alone may not be enough, it is also necessary to act on this logical zone. And this is a very important distinction that I would like to point out at this point. To overcome any crisis that has arisen in your relationship, it is important first of all to understand why relationships break down in the first place and why crises occur. It's important to know the three components of love and how a relationship evolves over time, something we are very often unaware of. The vast majority of the population has no idea about this, and this knowledge is really very valuable. One of these ingredients is passion, the second ingredient is intimacy, or friendly bonding, and the third ingredient is conscious commitment, or the logical decision that you want to be with this partner. What is very important is how these components of love mix over time, and at what levels they later remain. In the beginning, passion shoots up very strongly and dramatically. It is passion that is responsible for all those intense feelings we associate with this early phase of falling in love and with sexuality, and that feeling of longing. But also, such unpleasant feelings as jealousy or fear of losing this person, among others. After about 3 years of a relationship, passion rapidly subsides, and if a strong intimacy, that is, this friendly bond with the partner, has not built up in the meantime, then very often the relationship experiences its first serious crisis, which often ends in a breakup. If we think about creating a lifelong relationship, then building a friendly bond and nurturing that bond throughout the relationship is the absolute basis for actually living a lifetime with someone. That won't happen if we don't build that bond during a period of high passion, which subsides over time, because that's how we're built. The more we know each other, and even if something is exciting in the beginning, the more we get used to it and the less we appreciate it. It's like that with everything in our lives. In the beginning, everyone is very happy about some purchase, but after a few years we no longer see it at all as something as exciting as it was in the beginning. It is the same with our partner. Even if he or she is our best friend, over time we tend to become distant, however. As statistics show, the biggest crisis in a relationship comes about a year after the birth of the first child. That's when a lot of newness creeps into the life of a marriage or relationship, well, because a child has been born. The lifestyle changes completely, more responsibilities come, time is spent completely differently than when the couple was childless, there were no sleepless nights, and all the nerves associated with it. This is really a big test for such a relationship. If that friendly bond isn't there, if there isn't a lot of trust built up beforehand, well, there can be a big problem, and such a relationship may not survive this trial. And this is the reason why it is very important to build this friendly bond with your partner. If, on the other hand, in such a relationship that lasts for many years the passion has long since collapsed, this intimacy, that is, this friendly bond with the partner has collapsed, the relationship still does not have to fall apart immediately. Very often people are with each other out of habit. Some are afraid to be alone. Still others lead a boring life and don't really have any concrete reasons to separate. Such a relationship continues in the empty phase, which is often a very long phase of the relationship. It is only when there is actually some big opportunity to break up, some new person on the horizon, or some other events that the relationship ends. Unfortunately, for a long time the relationship is still based on such conscious commitment, on this conscious decision that I want to be with this person because I'm comfortable. So that's how the evolution of these 3 components of love over time works in a somewhat simplified way. Of course, it's going to look a little different in every relationship, but the tendencies are more or less the same. You can make sure that this friendship with your partner and conscious commitment to the relationship is at a high level throughout your life. This is a prerequisite for the relationship to actually survive. On the other hand, it is much more difficult to control this passion that arises when you meet some new person. That's why it's very easy to fall into a trap, because being in a relationship of several years, we don't feel these intense feelings and passionate love for our partner, and it may start to seem to us that this is not it, that maybe it should be some other person. And then all of a sudden there is someone for whom we start to feel something, because for example, we are working together, and then this passion appears, and it is very easy to forget about our partner. Jump from one flower to another, only to inevitably reach the same level again after a few years. Unfortunately, it is impossible to maintain this passion in a relationship for an infinite period of time. Sooner or later, it will fade anyway, maybe not so completely to zero, but really to a large extent. You just have to come to terms with it. But this does not mean that passion somewhere completely disappears and is lost forever. She will make her presence known, and repeatedly, especially in moments of crisis, moments of near breakup, or even after the breakup, especially if it is your partner who makes the decision that he wants to part with you. Then you will again feel that injection of all those hormones that were at the beginning of the relationship. You will feel a very strong need to keep your partner with you. Most often at all costs, as long as you don't end the relationship. And these are again, all those intense feelings that we collectively call passion, which is one of those 3 components that I just discussed. So by using all of these techniques that I am going to discuss later in the course, which are designed to repair the balance of commitment between you, you'll be able to prompt an emotional response from your person at a time when it is already very bad and you need to do something more extreme to kind of wake up the other person and show them that they're the one who could lose you at any moment. This will be the action of stimulating that passion factor in your partner's feelings. And interestingly, Just as you have no power over what you feel for your partner has no power over what he feels for you. The moment your partner starts to feel that he or she might lose you forever, he or she will get a shot of those hormones, making him or her feel like he or she is starting to care more. He may not even be able to sleep at night, because he will be thinking all the time. What's going on with you? What will you say to him? How will you behave? This is independent of his will, so neither you decide who you love and who you don't love, nor does your partner decide this. Even if he decides to himself consciously now that he doesn't want to be with you, but immediately gets that emotional kick that will affect his level of passion and feeling for you, it will no longer matter what he decided before, because he will be thinking about it all the time. Of course, if he has monstrous willpower, he may be able to overcome this emotional boost that tells him to call you immediately, apologize, and be with you again. Nevertheless, mastering himself will be much more difficult for him because his emotions will be bubbling inside him. If, on top of that, you provide him with such logical arguments that, however, it is worth giving you another chance, that, however, something may have happened that will make you change and no longer make the mistakes you made in the past, then there will be a real emotional cocktail. The fact that we have almost no control over how we feel about anyone is why it's very dangerous to hang out with your ex-partners, especially if you're the one who was previously dumped by an ex, and suddenly there's an opportunity to see each other somewhere, because then your feelings can also grow in a completely uncontrollable way for the ex, even if you're in a relationship. Among other things, this is how romances are born, as exes are the highest risk group for infidelity. It's best to cut off contact with your ex if you're really thinking about committing to your relationship to the max. If your partner is still in contact with his or her ex, it's also better to talk to him or her about it and set some rules. Intimacy, on the other hand, works in a completely different way. Building such a friendly bond with your partner, building mutual trust is building the whole foundation for a happy relationship that can last in high quality for many years or even for the rest of your life. Unfortunately, if you didn't take care to build such a friendly bond with your partner beforehand, it will most likely not be possible at the time of crisis. You may be able to do it later when you have mastered those worst moments and brought the biggest crisis under control. You can start to build it up when things are a little better between you, when you are talking normally again, and there is no immediate hostility or tension between you. Because if there is a very fractured balance of feelings to your detriment, where your partner sees that you are courting him at all costs, and then you will try to build this friendly bond even deeper, that is, spend more time with your partner, give more of yourself, talk about deeper topics, this can be perceived as trying even harder and can sometimes even work against you. That's why, most often, during such a crisis, we focus primarily on two factors. That is, this logical commitment. That is, to show that there could be a cool future with you after all, and to stimulate some passion, so that this person's emotions also move forward and help you more. This intimacy, i.e. this friendly bond, is such a foundation that will make it much easier for your partner to forgive you for your various mistakes, if he/she gives you very much affection, very much trust, and that he/she can rely on you. However, working on this intimacy and on this friendly bond will most often not be a direct way out of the crisis. Finally, let's discuss that last factor, which is commitment, because even if your relationship starts to collapse, passion is at almost zero, intimacy is very low. There is still a commitment to the relationship. That is such a conscious desire that I want to be with this partner. It can still be your very big asset if that person knows why they chose you, knows why they want to be with you, has invested a great deal of time in being with you. Perhaps you have things that bind you together, for example, even a marriage vow, a joint loan, or raising children together. It's possible that your partner wants there to always be a second parent and a full family. Such logical obstacles that will keep your partner from separating can be many. Unfortunately, there may also be a great many arguments for ending the relationship. The balancing act of arguments for and arguments against will be the deciding factor in whether or not the relationship ultimately survives. It is also worth being aware of what determines that your partner does not want to be with you. Such a decisive factor is the increasing hostility between you over time, or unresolved conflicts that regularly return and interfere. Maybe there is too much hostility, too many of these conflicts, too many differences between you. Most likely, there will eventually come a point when you no longer want to fight with each other, but just say, okay, I've had enough of this. I don't want to continue living like this anymore. In addition, Unfortunately, over time, both you and your partner tend to forget why you chose each other. Most likely in the beginning you saw everything through rose-colored glasses. You don't see any of your partner's flaws, the advantages alone, but over time, after years, this has changed. The rose-colored glasses even fall down completely, and it is exactly the opposite. We see mainly our flaws. What bothers us is very visible, and what we previously appreciated so much in our partner begins to be such an everyday occurrence that we don't even notice, because we are very much used to it. Therefore, the key to strengthening your relationship on the level of just this logical commitment is, first of all, to reduce the hostility that exists between you, to resolve conflicts that may have already begun to pile up, to eliminate, preferably to zero, any mistakes that may appear between you. Among others, those communication mistakes, which are most likely quite a lot, and to show each other anew from the best possible side. Acting in such a holistic way with your partner, in all possible ways, that is firstly and positively influencing how he feels about you on a passionate level, but in addition to that, also acting on his logical reasoning about you and increasing commitment to your relationship. Only then will you have the best chance of succeeding and actually getting out of the crisis that you are currently in. I invite you to the next section. If you liked the material, leave a like and send it to a friend or someone close to you who may benefit from this knowledge. If you want to support our work and help us create more valuable videos, there is a link in the description.